Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is Six Path Weeb, and I'm glad to have you here for another exciting chapter of our fanfiction journey. Today's story is What If Naruko Became Nightwing? Part 2. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any anime footage, images, music, or other copyrighted material used in my videos. All rights belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, in the previous part, we saw Naruko take her first steps down a path unlike anything the ninja world had ever witnessed. A path forged through determination, skill, and the will to protect others from the shadows. But that was only the beginning. In this chapter, new challenges await, powerful enemies emerge, and Naruko's journey as Nightwing continues to reshape the future in ways no one could have imagined. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Without further delay, let's begin. After the dust-up with Metallo, Shinobi and Superman were on their way to Washington, D.C. Superman insisted on flying them both there. He cited his incredible speed as the reason. Flying from New York to Virginia was easy when you could move faster than sound. It all sounded very reasonable, but the young ninja was certain he simply wanted to take advantage of the fact that flying made her uneasy. Traveling at such incredible speeds only made the feeling worse. Naruko's confidence and bold spirit were famous in their own right, but they always seemed to disappear whenever she was high above the ground. They arrived at the Hall of Justice in only a few minutes and found a colorful group of costumed heroes already waiting for them. A handful of tourists stood nearby as well, happily taking pictures of the heroes. When Superman finally set her down, Naruko got a good look at the people gathered before her. There was Batman, Robin, Green Arrow, Speedy, Aquaman, and Aqualad. She was ready to introduce herself, though she had met Robin and Speedy before, when Superman spoke up first. "Looks like we're still missing two. You'd think the two fastest people in the world could arrive on time." His joke earned a round of chuckles that ended only when the final two guests appeared in flashes of speed. The Flash and his protege, Kid Flash, had arrived. "I knew we'd be the last ones here," Kid Flash exclaimed. The group laughed again before making their way toward the Hall of Justice. Naruko tapped Kid Flash on the shoulder. When he turned around, she held out her hand. "Name's Shinobi. Nice to meet you." Kid Flash immediately shook her hand enthusiastically. "Hey. I'm Kid Flash. This is awesome. Have all the sidekicks ever been in the same place at the same time?" "Don't call us sidekicks. Not after today," Speedy interrupted. Today was supposed to be a big day for him. He hoped all of his training and hard work would finally be recognized. "Yeah. Besides, I'm not anybody's sidekick. Not even this guy." Naruko pointed at Superman. Superman gave her a friendly pat on the back that nearly made her stumble forward. "Sorry. First time at the hall. I'm a little overwhelmed." Kid Flash's amazement was understandable. Here they were, young heroes who had worked hard and earned their place. They were about to be welcomed into a group their mentors had been part of for years. It was a lot to take in. "You're overwhelmed," Freeze was underwhelmed. "Why is nobody ever just whelmed?" Robin asked. His comment brought their walk to an end. They entered the hall's atrium, where Red Tornado and Martian Manhunter stepped through a doorway marked authorized personnel only. Robin, Speedy, Kid Flash, Aqualad, Shinobi. "Welcome," Martian Manhunter said. He led them through the doorway. "You now have unlimited access to the gym, our fully stocked galley." They were shown many rooms throughout the hall. Each area had observation decks where tourists watched and took pictures. Naruko couldn't quite understand why the headquarters of the mighty Justice League felt so much like a museum. She also wondered why everyone kept talking about special access when visitors could already see most of what they were seeing. Eventually, the tour ended in the library. It was a spacious room lined with bookshelves. Comfortable chairs sat around a large black table in the center. And, Of course, our library, Martian Manhunter concluded. The Flash spread his arms dramatically. Make yourselves at home. The other teenagers immediately settled into the chairs. Only Speedy and Naruko remained standing. Naruko scratched her head thoughtfully. Superman had spoken excitedly about this day for weeks, and his enthusiasm had been contagious. She had begun to believe that the League truly saw her as an equal. Instead, she now found herself standing in what felt like a grand exhibit while heroes and tourists alike looked down from above. It was not exactly what she had imagined. As the older heroes began discussing a series of incidents from earlier in the day, Naruko considered sharing her disappointment. Speedy spoke first. That's it? You promised us a real look inside, not a glorified backstage pass. Aqualad answered calmly. It is a first step. You have been granted access that very few others receive. Speedy gestured toward the visitors watching from the observation deck. Oh, really? Who cares which side of the glass we're on? Green Arrow stepped forward. Roy, you just need to be patient. What I need is respect. He turned toward the other teenagers. They're treating us like kids. Worse, they're treating us like sidekicks. We deserve better than this. Aqualad, Kid Flash, and Robin exchanged uncertain looks. Then Speedy looked at Naruko. What about you? Didn't you stop Metallo all by yourself today? We're just as capable as any of them. Doesn't that bother you? Naruko crossed her arms and thought for a moment. Sure, it bothers me. Of course I'm disappointed. But that big oaf, she pointed at Superman, is my friend. He's been looking out for me since the beginning. I trust him. So yeah, I'm upset, but I'm not going to throw a fit just because things didn't go exactly how I expected. Instead of calming Speedy down, her words only seemed to make him more frustrated. You've got to be kidding me. Today was supposed to be the day. The first step toward becoming full members of the League. Kid Flash tried to help. Well, sure, but I thought step 1 was getting a tour of headquarters. That seemed reasonable enough to him, but Speedy quickly shook his head. Except this isn't their real headquarters. Several League members looked surprised. It was obvious that piece of information had not been meant for them. I bet they never told you the hall is just a front for tourists, Speedy continued. It's only a stop for Zeta beam teleporters that connect to the real headquarters, an orbiting satellite called the Watchtower. Green Arrow glanced toward Batman and immediately recognized the disapproval in his expression. I know, Green Arrow said with a nervous smile. But I thought maybe we could make an exception? Batman's silent stare made the answer perfectly clear. Or not. Wait. Robin, Aqualad, Kid Flash. And Naruko too? Guardian blinked in surprise. Naruko tilted her head. You know us? Guardian folded his arms and gave a small smile. I've seen you all helping people before. I just didn't expect to find you here. Robin stepped forward. Then maybe you can answer a few questions. Maybe, Guardian replied. But first, I'd like to know why 4 young heroes are wandering around a highly secure facility. We came to investigate, said Aqualad honestly. And to prove we can handle responsibility, added Kid Flash. Naruko nodded. We're trying to show that we're more than just trainees. We wanted to help. Guardian looked at each of them carefully. Instead of appearing angry, he seemed thoughtful. Wanting to help is admirable, he said. But helping and understanding are not always the same thing. The room grew quiet. Naruko glanced back at the strange creatures inside the glowing containers. She could not stop thinking about them. What about these? She asked softly. They look unhappy. Guardian followed her gaze. They are called genomorphs, he explained. Many people see them and only notice that they're different. Very few stop to wonder how they feel. Naruko stepped closer to one of the containers. The creature inside blinked its large eyes and looked back at her. I wonder that, she said. To everyone's surprise, the creature raised one hand and gently pressed it against the glass. Naruko smiled and placed her palm on the outside of the container. For a moment, neither moved. Then a nearby computer suddenly chimed. Robin turned toward the screen. Guys? You should probably see this." Everyone gathered around. Lines of information scrolled across the monitor. Research files. Energy reports. Project records. Robin's eyes widened. "This place is a lot bigger than we thought." Kid Flash leaned over his shoulder. "That's what you got from all that information?" "I'm building suspense," Robin replied. Aqualad shook his head with a patient sigh. Guardian looked at the screen as well. His expression changed. "What is it?" Naruko asked. "There are areas of Cadmus even I don't have access to," Guardian admitted. The team stared at him. "You work here," Kid Flash said. "I know." "And there are still secrets?" Guardian nodded. Robin's grin returned instantly. "Now that's interesting." Before anyone could say more, a small voice echoed through the room. "Hello." The heroes looked around. The voice had come from one of the Genomorphs. The creature stepped forward inside its container and waved shyly. "Hello," it repeated. Kid Flash nearly jumped out of his boots. "It talks." The Genomorph blinked. "Most people do." Naruko laughed. The creature tilted its head. "Was that a joke?" "I think so," Naruko said with another smile. For the first time since entering Cadmus, the atmosphere felt lighter. The Genomorph smiled back. And in that moment, Naruko realized something important. They had come searching for answers. Instead, they might have found new friends. "Hey buddy. Long time no see. I thought maybe you'd moved away. But here you are making living creations in some underground laboratory." Shinobi walked forward, arms stretched out to his sides in a welcoming gesture. "Come on, Guardian. This isn't you." "What, creations?" Shinobi, Before he could finish his statement, Guardian was interrupted by a strange feeling in his head. He looked down and gripped his temples. When he looked back up, his expression had changed. "Stop them. Don't let them interfere." Robin immediately tossed down a smoke pellet and used the distraction to fire his grapple line at the ceiling, quickly making his way out of the room. "You guys handle the creatures. I'll take Guardian," Naruko called out. She punctuated her words by sending a volley of shuriken toward Guardian. The shuriken were blocked by the shield on Guardian's forearm, but they had already served their purpose. He was separated from his underlings, and the distraction caused him to take his eyes off Shinobi for a moment. Shinobi used the opportunity to close the distance in a burst of speed. Before Guardian realized what was happening, Shinobi's hands were on his shoulders. The move knocked the genome away, and Shinobi flipped over him, using the momentum to send Guardian tumbling safely toward the wall by the doorway. Shinobi turned to see that Kid Flash and Aqualad had already dealt with their opponents. "Let's follow Robin. That little maneuver won't keep Guardian occupied for long." They hurried out of the room, a new wave of creatures following behind them. When they found Robin, he was already working his way into an elevator's control panel. "Way to be a team player, Rob," Kid Flash said with a sigh. Robin sometimes had a habit of rushing ahead before everyone else could catch up. "Weren't you right behind me?" Robin replied with his usual playful grin. He stepped into the elevator, and the rest of the team followed. The doors closed just as the creatures reached them, and the elevator began moving. Aqualad quickly noticed something unusual. "We're headed down?" "Dude, out is up," Kid Flash added. "Excuse me? Project KR is down on sublevel 52. It's the reason we're here," Robin responded. Naruko hadn't been paying close attention when they had first discovered that information, but whether Robin was right or not, it was too late to change course now. When the elevator arrived at sublevel 52, The change in scenery was startling. The walls were covered in a strange organic material that reminded Naruko of one of Jiraiya's unusual toad techniques. The hallway outside the elevator branched into several different paths, and barrels were scattered throughout the area. Naruko couldn't guess what they contained, but she wasn't eager to find out. Before the team could decide which way to go, another creature appeared. This one looked more humanoid and even wore clothing. "Hold!" it called. Immediately, it began levitating barrels and tossing them toward the group. The barrels burst apart when they landed nearby, and the team quickly agreed that finding another route would be the wiser choice. They dashed down the path on the right. Kid Flash sped ahead. When the others rounded the next corner, they found themselves facing a giant metal door marked Project KR. For better or worse, they had reached their destination. Kid Flash managed to secure the door, and the group entered one by one. Aqualad removed the improvised barricade once everyone was safely inside. Robin was already working his technical magic at a terminal near the doorway. "I've disabled the door. We're safe." "We're trapped," Aqualad observed. He had a point. They were 52 levels underground, separated from the outside world by a door that might not hold forever. Still, they didn't have much time to dwell on it because Kid Flash had discovered something far more surprising. Guys? You'll want to see this." He pressed a button on a console in the center of the room. A nearby containment pod lit up. Inside stood a teenager. Not just any teenager, either. He looked remarkably similar to Superman and wore a white suit bearing Superman's familiar emblem. Big K, little r. The atomic symbol for Krypton. Kid Flash turned to the others. "A clone? If it is a clone of the big guy, these people have a lot of explaining to do," Naruko said, stunned. Besides the fact that all of this had happened without Superman's knowledge, she knew he would never have agreed to such a project. Whatever the circumstances, though, it was too late now. The clone was already here. Robin quickly accessed the terminal and found the information they were looking for. Weapon designation, Superboy. A clone grown in 16 weeks? From DNA acquired from Superman. Stolen from Superman, Aqualad corrected. While the other three were discussing the specifications of this clone, Naruko finally heard something that truly caught her interest. Genomorph gnomes. Telepathic. Force-feeding him an education, Robin read aloud from the description of the creatures now known as Genomorphs. One of those things was on Guardian's shoulder too. I bet they're using their telepathy to control him. Probably this guy, too. Naruko gestured toward the clone. It made sense. Guardian never seemed like the sort of person who would willingly take part in an operation like this, especially not one run this way. They're making a servant out of Superman's son, Kid Flash said quietly. "Now we contact the League," Aqualad replied. Everyone agreed. He pressed the buckle on his belt, and it glowed blue. However, no response came through. They were too deep underground to receive a signal. They were on their own. "Let's get this kid out of here. I know Superman wouldn't want him being treated like this, even if he doesn't know the boy exists," Naruko said. As the pod opened, Naruko noticed the horns of the Genomorphs hovering above the clone beginning to glow red. Her eyes widened. Something was wrong. Before she could warn anyone, the clone sprang from the pod and rushed forward with incredible speed. The young clone was astonishingly strong, and he immediately tried to pin Naruko to the floor. Naruko reacted quickly. Years of training had taught her how to stay calm under pressure. She caught one of his arms and used his momentum to shift their positions. A moment later, she managed to gain the advantage and hold him in place. Still, it was difficult. Trying to keep him still was like holding onto a whirlwind. Naruko could tell he wasn't acting of his own free will. The glowing Genomorphs above him seemed to be directing his actions somehow. The clone wasn't at fault. He was another victim of whatever was happening in the laboratory. "We need to help him," she called to her friends. The clone struggled again, and his tremendous strength finally allowed him to break free. The force of his movement sent Naruko stumbling backward across the room. She slid against the large metal door behind her and lost her balance. The impact left her dazed. The room blurred around her as she tried to regain her footing. Far away, she could hear her teammates calling her name. Naruko. She wanted to answer them. She wanted to stand up and keep helping. But her head felt heavy, and the world seemed to drift farther away with every passing second. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was not one of fear, but concern for the confused young clone. He needed help. And somehow, she was determined that they would find a way to give it to him. Then everything faded into quiet darkness.